In line with the Mining Indaba's 2025 theme, Future-Proofing African Mining Today, two of the words that come to mind are partnerships and inclusivity. To help us better understand those two words, we are joined by Benitha. Benitha, thank you so much for your time. So when we talk about partnerships in the mining industry, what are some of the biggest challenges and how do we overcome them?
Thank you, Nastasia. Thank you for having me. There are so many challenges, in monitoring partnerships around, because today, especially with the energy transition, the mining, the mining environment attracts a lot of partners. A lot of people want to be part of it, which is good. But what becomes very challenging sometimes is how to balance the need for regulation with support of the livelihood of those involved in ASM. So usually it's mainly the differences in everyone's, let's say, goals and objectives. So each partners come with their own agenda. The government will have also its own agenda. And now how do you put the two together in order, because it's the same mining sector where it has to, all these projects have to be done. So how do you put them together? How do you combine, what the government requires, what the partners want to do on the ground, what the communities also would require, how do you put it together in order for it to produce the result that we want? It's always like the challenge that we would face. Yeah, I'd say balancing the different agendas. Yeah.
In my intro, I mentioned that the theme for 2025 for the Mining Indaba is future-proofing the African mining industry. How does that look in your mind if you had to imagine the future of African mining? And where does the social license fit in that picture that you have of the mining industry?
Well, the only thing I can think of is collaboration. I think everyone has a role to play. When we talk about social license to operate, we see that the company has a role to play. The communities also would have a role to play because they are the beneficiator of whatever would be implemented. But also the government will have a role to play, in terms of regulation, the frameworks, even the environments, like the government also has a responsibility. And then you also have like the procurement, etc. So all of the stakeholders would need to play their role in order for us to achieve what we want to achieve. So for me, future-proofing African mining would start by a vision, a collaborative vision. So unless we see things in the same way, we can't really work together, right? So if we have like hidden agendas, if you have like, you want to have what is mine, but you don't want to pay for the price of it, you don't want to pay the price, of what I can offer you. That's a problem. So we need to go back as, how do we play this? It has to be like a win-win situation. It has to be very transparent. It has to be, with the intention of the future of not just now, not just today, because unfortunately in so many African governments, sometimes we have the impression that it's led like that. It's more like today. But these mines will not be there like in 50, 100 years from now. These, minerals will be off the ground and it will be over. So what will stay in the communities? And I think it's the responsibility of the government, but also the people. It's our responsibility to ensure that the future, those that will come after us will find something. We found something because, the ones that came before us did not destroy everything. So it's our responsibility to think about that. And we have to think about it together. We have to think about it responsibly, and we have to think about it in a way that everyone benefits from it.
With that said, a lot of the guests who've come on have been talking about critical mining, rather critical minerals, especially in the mining space. Let's bring in that concept now that we've just spoken about the social license. Does it pose a challenge? How do you work around the social license aspect to operate with critical minerals mining?
So how I see it is the whole critical minerals idea comes with the energy transition, right? It comes with the need for green for green metals, or like the clean energy, and for it we need the minerals, and most of these minerals are found in Africa. When we talk about cobalt, we have, for example, the DRC, who's the biggest producer of cobalt. We can talk about lithium. We can talk about copper, whatever, like all these critical minerals are important and are found in Africa. And for me, the energy transition is actually, it's sort of a second chance that, you know, the history or God or whatever you want to put it, has given to also African countries to do things, to change history if possible, but also to correct some of the mistakes that were made in the past and just change the narrative around it. And I believe strongly that it's possible to leverage, you know, the energy transition in order to improve the livelihood of the African communities as well. So it's not just about, you know, mining these critical minerals because the world needs it, because let's say, you know, we need to have, you know, EV vehicles, but also it's, you know, where it is mined, the people are also beneficiating from it, you know. Where it's mined, people are at least going to school, they're at least eating, they're at least, you know, they also like seeing the advantage of it. So it's not just about the business part, but it's also about the people that are living in it. And when talking about, for example, social license, what we really think about is you know, the impact that whatever mining operations is done, whatever, you know, whatever, whether it's exploration or exploitation, whatever is done there, that's the people that we found wherever we're doing it, you know, are also enjoying the benefits of what was theirs, in a sense, right? So how do we put these two together? Like it has to collaborate. Like it has to be leveraged. We have to leverage the energy transition. We have to make sure that the communities in which these critical minerals are being extracted from are benefiting from it as well. So.
Speaking of the communities from where you know, these minerals are extracted from, how do we bridge that gap between what the mineral is used for and the impact on the ground?
So, I think what the minerals are being used for, there's so many different things that it could be used for. But what I don't understand or don't agree with is when, for example, we are digging in order to produce clean energy in an environment where there's not even energy. Like we don't even have electricity in that environment, but you're mining copper, cobalt, whatever, in order to bring, you know, energy elsewhere. So I think it's really important to think of the needs are surrounding, you know, the communities where it is done. So if we want to, let's say, produce a cleaner energy, we need people to be alive to benefit from the clean energy. I don't know if it makes sense what I'm saying, but like, so people would have to live, people would have to, you know, have jobs, people would have to have good schools, good water, because also in some companies, for example, you'd see that maybe the water is going into the communities, and like communities are getting sick from the waters. Those are things that we should not even be seeing anymore, right? So like the whole concept of critical minerals and the communities like would have to, in a way or another, you know, work together in order for everyone to win from the situation. It has to be a win-win situation. It's not just we have bigger problems, we have bigger objectives, but it also like, yeah, while we are thinking about, you know, the global and it's just honest to say that the situations are not the same. And we look at, for example, where most of these, you know, critical minerals are being transformed, whether it's in China, whether it's in the US, whatever, like where, you know, they're using it in the batteries for like the EVs or etc. Like it might not be the same problems as where, for example, it is produced. For example, in some contexts, you have problems where we know, for example, that the resource is there. Like we know that there are mines, there are minerals there, but just to remove, like to get it off the ground is a problem because the infrastructure is not there. So you'd find such problems in such area. So what do? Do you just bring the infrastructure for the project and that's it? Or do you think of, you know, more than just bringing the infrastructure for the project? You also contribute to the development of that place. You also make sure that the people that you found there, you know, are also, you know, having electricity, having the roads that they need to have, having, you know, the local content being, you know, improved, or the transformation happening, the technology is being transferred. It's not just about bringing people to come and work there, but it's also training the people that you found there for them to also be able to to assist, to help, to extract or to process those things. So I think it's very collaborative efforts cannot be neglected in that point. But yeah.
From the conversations that you're having, do you find that those collaborative efforts are starting to show themselves, i.e. the companies are starting to think differently about the areas in which they operate, wanting to leave a bigger impact on the social aspects with the communities than they was, say, before they started mining operations? Are companies starting to think differently about the landscape and the communities and some of the things that you mentioned?
Well, I would say yes. We see a lot of improvement. It might not be because they want to, but at least one good thing, that this type of gatherings like the Indaba does, it's because it's been spoken of a lot, because people are, pushed to become accountable. I think we're seeing the change, right? We're seeing that whether they want it or not, companies are now making efforts. You see that companies feel the need to show that they've improved things. You see that companies take pride in helping the communities. So I think that's really changing from what it used to be. And of course some areas it might not be the same, and it's not always the fault of the companies. In my context, I've seen cases where the company would give the money, the company would want to give the support that it wants to give, but sometimes things like corruption, things like just does not help, right? Like the money will be given to, let's say, a few people that actually decide to do something else than what it was intended for to the communities. That's not really the company's fault, right? That's like the community's fault, and maybe the government should actually, take charge in and find a way to hold those people accountable. But the companies themselves, I feel like we have more and more, and even on the, for example, on the standards level, you see that, especially those that are, from, I don't know who you call them, like la bourse. So in French, you say la bourse, those that take money from, who have stakeholders like investors, and that care about their reputational risk. They would really make sure that things are done in a correct way, so that they are see in their best books and they can receive more money again. So we see the change. We see more willingness. We see more contribution. But again, it's just not enough. Yeah.
Benitha, thank you so much.
Thank you.
For more insights, you can go to miningindaba.com.